Hey, we're back, I'm told. And I'm with Jesse Gee.
Hey, gang.
Jesse
Me.
Gee. Hey, gang, and he brought all kinds of fun stuff. We turned my little creature from the Black Lagoon here, my little angry fish guy, into our mic stand. So uh, that's why he's there.
Yeah.
Jesse brought in a bunch of fun stuff to actually show and tell and kind of work on, too. I met Jesse at, where did we meet? At Legacy, probably,
Legacy.
right? And I'm not sure how long. It just seems like we've known each other forever.
Well, I started there at first in 2010.
Okay. So it's been a little while.
Yeah. It's been 10 years.
Math is. So, but you're obviously we can see here there's some great engineering going on here. Art, you do a lot of, what would you call it, like found art or?
Yeah, I do a found object assemblage,
Found object,
and I work in science fiction themes almost exclusively.
Right.
But that's just my hobby.
Right.
As far as getting into the business, I'm sort of a jack of all trades. I don't know if you'd call me a master of any, but, I'm pretty good at some things.
You're a makeup artist, though.
I started in the business as a makeup artist. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I've seen some of your makeups. You're a good makeup artist, but then I knew you as like a prop builder and miniatures builder and things like that. So, what got you from one to the other?
Well, as a child, I got interested in special effects when I realized what it actually was.
Okay.
But I was never into monsters. In fact, I was kind of traumatized as a toddler by a particularly vicious haunted house in Ohio that I should not have been taken into. And
At what age was this?
I was 3.
Oh boy.
And my parents' hometown, we were visiting, or maybe it's some town nearby. They had a haunted house that was just happened to, we were just happened to be near it.
Right.
And they had blacked out the front of the building with like giant black plastic.
Okay.
And just cheap way to make it look not like an empty grocery store or whatever it was. They had an behind the plastic was a stairway that went up to the second floor, and as you could walk up, all the kids in the line were reaching out and beating their hands on that plastic.
Gotcha.
That's all I wanted to do. Had no idea it was a haunted house. Didn't know what that was. I was just whining to my dad. I want to go in there. I want to go do that. I want to go do that. And they're like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" "Yeah, I want to do that." So we're walking up the stairs. I'm trying to reach out. I'm too small to hit the plastic. I can't even.
And that's all you wanted to do.
Yeah, I didn't know that anyone was going into anything up there, and so I'm kind of like having a small panic attack because we're almost at the top of the stairs and I haven't hit the plastic yet. Suddenly, we're in the door, and it's zombies. I feel like probably every teenager in this town was a Fangoria maniac.
Right.
And had spent all their money on the most realistic zombie masks they could afford.
Right.
They're reaching out, moaning and growling, and lights are flashing. There's a scene where they have a woman tied on a bench, and a man with a chainsaw comes out, and he swings it down, and the lights go black, and they splatter you with warm water. And then the lights come out, and she's cut in half. They did a swap or whatever, but
Right. Maybe they cut her in half.
As far as I was concerned, that I learned that monsters were real that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I had sleeping problems for years,
Oh,
nightmares
boy.
for years, and I couldn't watch scary movies till like college, basically. Yeah, so I'm not.
Says awesomeness.
I'm not really a monster kid. I grew to appreciate monsters as I got into special effects. I sort of, once I learned that, well, I guess probably age 9 or so, I watched a behind the scenes of how they made Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Okay.
And then so they've got the miniatures and the compositing and the bigatures,
Right.
and the animatronic ant puppet or whatever. They've got all the lasers and everything, and they showed, I don't know if it was ILM, it might have been ILM.
Yeah.
I saw that and I thought, oh my god, that's a job.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was interested in that for a while, and I used to make like little stop motion movies with the VHS camera, which was so difficult.
Right.
Because you have to stop, start, stop, and then half the frames have your hand in it. And then there'd be like 5 frames of static, and I had to do all in-camera editing, so everything was always a struggle. High school came around, and I started high school in '95, so Jurassic Park had come out. The Matrix was about to come out, and I got really interested in CGI.
Okay.
But it was early CGI, and I got into 3D modeling like before Maya ever existed. It was a program called Ray Dream 3D, and it was at XYZ modeling. So you would draw a silhouette on the X1 plane and the Y plane, and then the ground plane. You draw 3 silhouettes, and it would basically, it was almost like a lathe.
Right.
It would make a 3D shape.
Figure out that geometry just by those 3.
And you would do like curves, like vector curves on these 3 graphs to build a shape. And so like if you wanted to make an alien like I did a head, and then I did a nose, and then I did lips, and then I did 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 different shapes to make the arms. And then by the end you had a 3D model, but you couldn't animate it. Right. It was just
that's pretty
very
impressive.
rudimentary.
That's really impressive.
Like 97 or something.
Okay.
So I started looking at art schools that had 3D graphic programs. Didn't get into any or couldn't afford any. So a teacher of mine whose husband was a director convinced me to think about going into film, because I seemed to like it. I made all these home movies in high school, and she was right. I did like it, so I kind of abandoned my 3D special effects goal, and just went to film school.
And where were you in film school?
In College of Santa Fe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is also my hometown. My college was a block from my high school, which was kind of weird. But when I was there, I was studying cinematography. So I was going to be, I got really into camera. I wanted to be a camera operator. I didn't really care much about anything else. But I was, unfortunately, I'm what they call Gen Y, or they used to. Now they're trying to call it Xennial. Yeah. And we were right on the cusp of a lot of developments. Like, we got through high school with very little internet and no cell phones. Right. We got through college with all the internet programs brand new. So I was taking 16mm classes. We were editing on cut machines with tape. And we were doing big 3/4-inch video with tape-to-tape decks. Right. We were learning all the stuff that was obsolete 1 year later.
Oh, boy.
So the next year after our editing class, they all went to Avid and started doing digital editing.
So you would have had to do more school to...
So like 2 years after I was taking 16mm, they were all doing HD camcorder video. Okay. So...
You were already a dinosaur.
I was already... They were training us as dinosaurs unwittingly. You never knew what was going to come out the next year. But... it was basically becoming too expensive for me to try to get good at shooting film, because it's like $200 a minute to shoot and process film, and that's without a video transfer. Right. And I wasn't going to edit on 16mm film, because that's like another 3 months. So sure. I was at a theatrical shop in Santa Fe renting lights for a cinematography project, and they had the makeup wall. And they had the Tom Savini books. So I'm waiting for them to get my lights ready that I was renting. Right? And I'm looking through Grand Illusions. Yeah. And it's like, oh, they cut a hole in the table, and the guy's butt goes down, and then they could pull his guts out of the empty space. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And that same week, I was working at the equipment rental cage at our film school. And this school was attached to a professional film studio. Okay. So occasionally movies would come through, like Wild Wild West was there right before I came. Some low-budget bullshit production had left some stuff in the studio, and among them was this, oh God. I was so excited. But thinking back, it was utter garbage. Someone had taken upholstery foam, like you've got, making a brick about this big, cut it in a mid-body shape, and wrapped like dental dam over it, like latex, and then it almost looked like they had dipped cooked hamburger in rubber and sprinkled it over it. And then they had shoved vinyl tubing into it in like, it almost looked like the spaghetti was throwing up out of this thing.
Right.
And it was covered in fake blood, but the tubes came out the bottom, and I washed them out, and I was like, I got a syringe on them, and I was like, this is just like that book I was looking at. This is neat. And then a couple days later, my friend said, I'm shooting my senior movie's going to be a kung fu film, and I want you to be the DP. And I didn't really feel confident in that, and I said, you're going to need like a lot of blood and guts and stuff? And he was like, yeah, we don't know what to do about that. And I was like, let me do that. And so that's how it went. So I was making fake blood. I was doing hot glue on upholstery foam. I was taking those styrofoam wig forms,
right,
cutting them in half, painting them with acrylic paint, and putting a part of a latex bald cap around the neck.
Right.
Shooting oh God. There's a shot in the movie where somebody whacks at a guy's head with a sword, and it's a styrofoam head, falls out of frame. There's a way too skinny neck stub, and there's one tube in the middle, and the fake blood just starts shooting out like a drinking
water
fountain.
Yeah.
And then it falls out of frame.
Todd Rex says, I've known Jesse for years and I've never heard him talk this much ever. This is great.
Well, Todd, you're welcome. So anyway, we did a lot of effects, and some of them turned out great on that. And then I made my own senior film, which was just all effects heavy. And then I was dating somebody who was a little younger. So I graduated college, and she was still in school in Utah. Okay. So I went up there, we moved in together, and I didn't know what I was going to do at all. I started doing stagehand work, and I was making like $10 an hour. Of course, our rent was, we had a 2-bedroom for $600.
Right.
So I only really needed to scrounge up like $400 a month to live on.
Right.
But anyway, I found a haunted house there, and I kind of...
Any plastic bags like dripping down there that you could?
I called him up, and I was kind of selling myself higher than I was, because I had.
That's what you have to do.
By this time, I had done my first prosthetics. I had made a mold. I had done foam latex. Turned out like garbage. Yeah. But I knew how to mix foam, and sort of. I didn't really.
Right.
I'd done it once. But I called, and I was like, "Hey, do you need anybody that has like special effects prosthetic experience? Because I'm really good at that." And I wasn't good, but she was like, actually, we're a professional level haunted house, and we have Hollywood professional makeup artists running this thing. You should come down here. So I went down there, and I don't know if you ever met Chris Hansen.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's
worked with him at
K&B. Yeah, he worked at K&B.
Yeah.
He would go every fall. He would go to back home and work at this haunted house and run the makeup department.
Okay.
Which was mostly volunteers, but I kind of became the intern there. So from August through Halloween, 5 days a week, from 11 a.m. to like 11 p.m., I was there.
Right.
Occasionally I'd have to go work and do my other job to make my $100 or whatever. And he taught me all about sculpting, ultracal, doing ultracal molds properly, and we'd run foam every morning. We'd make about 20 prosthetics. We had an oven there. And then every night we'd slap them on these high school kids. All the like Hot Topic goth kids in Salt Lake worked at this haunted house, scaring all the like squares who had come through. But this place was in an old grocery store.
3-year-olds.
It was called Rocky Point, and it was like, I don't want to say everything was Hollywood movie quality, but the makeups were, a lot of the makeups were, the costumes were great, the sets were for sure movie quality. It was an A+ operation.
Is this still going?
No, they stopped, I want to say about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was a total crash course, and we had to do, some zombie makeups we'd have 10 minutes, others we'd have 45 minutes, but we were cranking them out, and you got to experiment. If you screwed up and your makeup looked kind of bad, slap some blood on it, doesn't matter. Get the kid down the road. And so I got pretty good at makeup there.
Just doing it quick and doing it fast, one after the other.
And then when we moved to LA, I had sent my resume to every shop. And
now, was that the plan? Was that you were waiting for your girlfriend to get out of school so you could both move to LA? Or?
Right. She was a dancer, so it was either New York or LA, and I didn't think I would have much luck in New York because pretty much there's like Saturday Night Live and maybe movies, maybe.
Yeah.
So we decided LA would be better, and I sent my resume to every shop in town, all my haunted house pictures color copied, and my resume, asking for $10 an hour, which I thought was outlandish because I'd been making like $6 an hour minimum wage. The only shop I ever heard from was Kyoto's, and they brought me in at one point just briefly to run foam.
What year is this then?
This was 2005.
Okay.
So then sometime in 2006, Chris Hansen came back to LA working for Autonomous Effects on this movie Dead and Deader.
Okay.
Which was a Dean Cain movie about zombies that were caused by radioactive scorpions.
Oh, that'll do it.
And so Chris got me on the phone with Jason Collins, and he had me come down and do like a fast zombie makeup, like kind of as an audition, and then he brought me in doing like background zombies and blood and guts and moving dead body props around on that movie, and that sort of started me into movies and the shop scene.
Okay.
And then on the side I was PAing on TV commercials.
Now, like, as far as being an artist and your artwork and the artwork that you're still doing as your hobby, sort of, I mean, how long have you been doing that? I mean, you must have been doing this for quite a while.
This started in 2008.
Okay.
Totally on a whim. I was working at this other shop, and we were making a film. Do you know Lee Romer?
Yeah.
I was working at his shop.
Him at Steve Johnson's on The Tick.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, he was making a film that required a spaceship to be built.
Okay.
And he figured I could do it, and I figured I could do it. I had built model kits before, but I had never done a custom thing. So I made this big spaceship completely out of trash, like old Legos and toys, and I did all the plating and paneling, all the Star Wars style stuff, just with construction paper and hot glue. And it turned out pretty good. I loved doing it. And then my friend Jerry Gunther?
No, I don't.
Okay, well they showed me this book, Dr. Groardbort. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's a designer at Weta.
Oh, okay, yes.
Named Greg Broadmoor.
Yes.
And he's done a lot of stuff.
Those are the ray guns and the sci-fi.
He made this comic book about
50s retro.
Kind of retro ray guns, and I started getting obsessed with ray guns made out of garbage.
Right.
And so I just started doing it myself.
One person's trash.
Yeah. So I started making these things that I decided I wanted to make lamps, and they were all robots, UFOs, ray guns, and I was doing that, and then Legacy Effects was working on real steel. And
that's right. That's where I met you.
Somebody got me an interview to make the background robots for that. So me and a couple other model makers, we just had mountains and mountains of robot parts and these aluminum armatures, and we were just total kit, like 8-foot kit bashing.
Right.
And
how many did you make? I remember that down on the floor. There must have been like 15 or 20 of them, maybe?
There was 20 of them, and I made 8 of those.
Okay.
So
because it was all the they did vacuum forms of a lot of the shoulder pieces, chest pieces, and
from
other robots that we had done from other movies, maybe,
everything.
or commercials. And here's a pile of trash. Make something out of it.
Yeah. And so actually, I brought some things to show you. But anyway, so I went from makeup artist to creature painter to model maker, and then because I was at Legacy and they needed extra hands, I went on to Snow White, doing costume assembly. And then
for the knighted army. Yeah.
So unfortunately, model making, there's still people that make models, but a lot of it has gone the way of 3D printing and processing, and I'm not really interested in that. So I sort of wedged myself closer and closer to costume fabrication while at Legacy.
Right.
And
because you were downstairs.
Yeah.
At Legacy, the layout of that shop was there was the downstairs model shop, which is where you were basically.
Anyway, this is
an upstairs fabrication, and then
This is something I just found recently in my closet. This is the first severed head I ever made. This was during my haunted house days. And
you like the way we say this stuff? This is the first severed head I ever made.
Yeah.
Meaning, we've made a lot of severed heads.
I made this. This is just slip cast latex from a clay sculpture I had done. The bottom is just hot glue on raw foam. It's deteriorated. And this sat on we balanced it on the shoulders, and it would just fall off in the shot.
With one piece of tie-gun tubing coming up for
the eyebrows have all fallen off. But I was so proud at the time of this, and I found it recently. I pulled it out of the storage, and my neighbor was right there looking, and I was like, "Oh, don't worry. I just am using it for the hair," which was a weird thing to say. Anyway, while we talk, I want to just show you what kind of things I do. So I go thrift store shopping, I go to garage sales, and I find all kind of shit. So today I just brought a random handful of things that I've gotten at thrift stores that are just weird. I don't even know what they are. That could be an ashtray. Oh, that's a light bulb. This is neat. This is a glass. But what I do is I just mash stuff together. This is one of my final products. This is a lamp.
Ooh.
But it's made of a lot of different things, and this is sort of an insect shape or arachnid, whatever you want to call it. But this is a disc or a drum brake from an old Volkswagen. This is a Volkswagen cylinder from the engine, and then this bug is made of 1, 2, 3, 4, a lot of parts.
Yeah.
This is part of an old baseball cap hat rack. There's 7 different parts in the face that are just little doodads that I found. These are compasses and cotter pins, and there's all sorts of stuff that.
That's a compass.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it's disguised with via paint and then these hydraulic lines, fake hydraulic lines, so you don't notice what they are. And that's my favorite thing that's why I got into effects, is I love illusions.
Right.
If you can make something look real as something else, that's my favorite thing. So real quickly, I wanted to show you.
I'm gonna set this aside a tiny bit, give you more room.
Yeah. So I've got this hot glue gun, and this I just want to give a quick demo of how you can turn anything into a lamp.
Can you pull the table back towards you a little bit?
Yep. This is an extension cord, but you can buy lamp making kits at the hardware stores. Any cord, you're gonna have your plug. I sometimes would get high-end custom cord and then add my own plug, but you can do this at home. This is a wire stripper. There's all kinds of different strippers, but this one's neat because it's automatic. You just go like this, and you squeeze the trigger, and it pulls the housing off the end. So now you've got these 2 raw things. This is a switch. This is a dimmer switch that you can get any place. There's your ground wire. It comes with these wire nuts. You can get all kinds. I just cover the ground wire up because we're not going to use it. So what you want to do is, what else? I brought something else here. You need a socket as well.
Move the severed head.
Move the severed head. This is a standard socket. Your light bulb goes in there, and it's got your 2 contact points. I'm going to use a screwdriver here.
How are we doing for time?
You got about 20.
Oh, great. Perfect. Yeah.
So, if I take this lamp wire and make 2 little curves here, they go right into underneath these screws, and you can screw them together. Screw it down, I should say. And this is not very difficult. In fact,
you don't need a lot of tools. I mean, this is something great if you have some imagination and a few dollars to spend at.
Yeah.
You can start putting together these amazing things. So like you said, a compass. You
can turn almost anything into a neat lamp just by putting a light bulb inside of it. So now we have the wires hooked up, and of course you don't want to touch those 2 once it's plugged in.
No.
They make housings with everything's self-contained with 2 wires coming out of it, and that's a lot easier. But if I plug this in here, we've already got a lamp. Now, if we did a switch, I don't know if I brought wire cutters. Oh, sure I did. Okay, so let's unplug this.
Always important to unplug before you make a cut.
The way a lot of switches work on an AC circuit is you take one of the wires, and with this kind of thing, it doesn't matter which. Where do I want it? Maybe a little lower. Typically, when I do my builds like this, there's a dimmer switch built in here. It's hidden somewhere, you know,
you make it part of the art.
Pleasing. Yeah. Or you can get those little switches that just clip right onto the cord, but with a dimmer, it's a little trickier. Anyway, what I'm doing here is separating a chunk of this cord of the 1 wire. I'm going to strip this, double check we're unplugged.
We're unplugged.
Okay. I give these little copper wires a spin. I'm going to just take one end with this black wire, twist it together, put a wire nut on it. Now, you can mess around with wire nuts for temporary things. Eventually you would either want to use heat shrink tubing or soldering or a proper plastic butt connector. But for now, this is a good way to test out your circuit. So,
what's your base there? Is that like a fondue?
This is definitely something like a fondue thing. You would put either a candle or some sort of fire
like
heat
flame,
element, like maybe a sterno can.
Sterno can, yeah.
Put some, but this is, I don't even know because I found this at thrift store.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to douse hot glue all over this thing, and I'm going to shove it right there.
Now your 2 metal, your positive, negative, they're not touching the metal down below, are they?
That's a good question.
We'll find out because I'm going to step away when he plugs it in.
Well, that might have been a poor choice. No, it's fine.
You're going to go underneath. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. But anyhow, I'm just going to quickly show what kind of things you can do. But typically I don't use hot glue, but because we're making this in 5 minutes, I thought it'd be neat just to have a semi-finished product. But
here, let me hold that while you do that.
You got any of that dust off spray? Probably not.
I don't.
It's almost cool, just like me. Okay, that's good enough.
Improvising. He's making it work.
Yeah, so anyway, I got obsessed with making this sci-fi art, and I got really obsessed with like 1930s and 1950s sci-fi art. And I'm really into Art Deco and Streamliner stuff. But let's say you just put that on top of there. Let's say you put that on top of there. Let's say you put this here. And let's say you turn your switch on. You know, you don't want to do that. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It's all good.
Here, I got an idea. Just for now, because we're doing this so fast, I'm going to take 2 zip ties. Watch this. Or a long zip tie would have been better, but...
Uh-oh.
I got it. If it doesn't zip, you haven't done it right. But anyway, I usually spend anywhere between 10 and 100 hours on these lamps, depending on, you know.
So how much time have you got in something like this over here?
That's pretty complicated. I don't like to keep track because
sure,
I am usually not able to sell these things for as much as I would like based on the amount of hours I put in.
And so after you've got the parts, and I know you do a lot of collecting, your garage is filled with all of these parts, all these found parts. Do you take these parts and do you start with any kind of design or Is it just kind of like...
I do what I'm doing now.
Yeah, just fit it together. Does this fit there? Or?
Does this fit? Does that fit? How can I make this fit or that fit? So this now already looks kind of like a flying saucer lander, UFO kind of thing. You could put this as is in a like boutique in Hollywood and probably sell it for $200.
Right.
I don't usually do anything this low end. What I would do with this, because I like how this is looking, is I would build a very fancy interior shape that housed the light bulb.
Can perfectly fit on there.
And it would look more like the insides of a robot or something. Right. And then I would probably, from here, make a joint there with another leg that comes up and back down. So it's a little more spidery.
And then you got to find that part.
Yeah, and my garage is 100% full of useful and interesting pieces for that purpose. You know, and I like to just play with what works. Normally, I don't do this kind of balancing.
Now, are you normally doing any kind of like building for these, as far as like custom making any parts, or is it all about the found part?
I do both. I initially started with like a rule that it all had to be found parts, but then I found immediately that just wasn't enough of what I needed. So I use plastic and bandsaw, and I do a lot of alteration of parts. Sometimes I'll make a silicone mold of a part, and then once I get a resin casting of it, I can trim it down, shave it into shape, or put two of them together with another one in between and drill a hole through it, and then you have
sometimes you find you need 10 of them and you've only got 2.
Right. So I do a lot of reproduction of vintage pieces through molding. Sometimes I do a full custom fabrication from scratch, but I try to minimize that because I think what people like about my art is looking at it and going, oh, look at that cool robot. Hey, wait a minute. That's a compass like I used in high school geometry class. Or you'll get somebody, hey, is that a cylinder off a motorcycle? Yeah, it is. You know, and they like seeing the potential of a shape.
Here's the question for you. What is one of these more rewarding over the other? So, I mean, you're working in film, you're working on real steel, you're working on this film or that. I mean, we worked on the Avengers films together at Legacy and all that kind of stuff. But is there one that gives you a little bit more reward over the other? Or is it two different kinds of reward?
I would say that for me, the reward is in the initial completion of the potential of my idea. So this piece and this piece have been in my garage for probably 4 years.
Okay.
And I've always known that'll probably be like the legs of a UFO. That'll probably be a robot's head. To see, even just now, seeing this shape gives me satisfaction. And when I finish a full thing, I'm so satisfied. So at work, if I'm doing a makeup, especially if I get to sculpt it, which is rare, I love seeing the finished product. I love the process of getting to it. What I don't love is once you figured it out the first time, or you're done with the creative part, then it's just repetition.
Right.
You spent
now build 12 of those.
3 days figuring out how these parts are going to fit together and how to make it aesthetically look, how to make the helmet meet the neck.
Right.
And you're like, okay, got it. No, that's very satisfying. And they're like, yeah, we need 12 of these, and now that you only have 4 days left.
Right.
That's the part where I'm just like, oh, the creativity is gone, the fun is gone.
On Snow White and the Huntsman that we worked on, where we made, 100 of those armor costumes.
150 armor suits. And I wasn't even part of the R&D. So all the fun stuff of figuring out how the straps are going to, it was just grinding rubber, drilling holes, rivets, super glue, and 1099.
Yep, we talked about that yesterday a little bit, 1099. But yeah, and I mean, that's, we talked a little bit yesterday too when we started talking about the kind of foam that I use and the fabrication that I do. You know, I'm using L200 to make it look like, because Ted Smith was here and we were talking about like armor and trying to make foam, something soft, look hard in painting and all that kind of stuff. So Jesse was inside of the costume, and I've got this on my Instagram, is the Bumblebee costume from the Transformers.
Yeah.
And we tortured Jesse in that suit because you were on stilts that were probably a good 2 feet almost.
At least.
About 2 feet, yeah.
My head was probably at.
You were tall.
9 feet or 10 feet in the air.
Yeah, you were big, and then your arms were like so, So your elbows actually became the shoulders of the costume.
Yeah.
And then you had grips to hold on to that could actually actuate the elbows.
The elbow and the fingers.
And the finger
There was
movement.
2 levers.
2 levers.
So your arms are like this for an hour and a half.
Right.
It's rough.
And he never fell once.
I didn't fall.
We tortured him in the shop. I did like foam core mock-ups. We did foam mock-ups. And then built the final suit. And you were in on building all that, right?
Yeah.
You were working on that building. And so, Jesse and I shared a table or a space. I had a table, he had a table right next to me, and so it was passing parts back and forth. And
carving foam.
Yeah, real collaboration. We had our bandsaw right in between us, and we'd be sawing down these parts and
Plasti-dip.
A lot of sprayed Plasti-dip on all these parts. But then we went to South by Southwest with it, where you did not fall. We do 2 days.
I almost fell when we were leaving.
Yeah.
Walking out the back.
Right.
I hit like some uneven ground, and it was like, ooh,
well,
catch me.
And that's the funny thing. Is like we go to set for something like that, and that was just a personal appearance. It wasn't for a commercial or film or anything like that.
Oh, they wanted that thing to bust through a wall and give a thumbs up in the commercial.
Right. Oh, we got a question.
Yeah, Vicky Fern says, "What's up, Vest Buds?"
I know. I'm glad you got the memo.
Well, this was not a memo. Ted looked up on my Instagram what I was wearing today.
That's what it was.
And decided to copy me. I always wear a vest, and Ted never wears a vest. Oh. So this,
except for the last 3 days, I've worn a.
Well, I don't know anything about the last 3 days. I'm just saying that you come anytime to my house or me at work, vest, dark jeans, Indiana Jones shoes. That's how you dress when you're a professional.
Interesting.
So interesting that Ted decided this was his look for his life.
Normally Jesse is so like this with I've got some pictures I might want to post on Instagram that are very contrary to that description.
Well, don't do that. By the way, none of my clothes fit. I went through about 5 belts and 3 pairs of pants to get into this for you.
Oh.
And the vest is killing me.
You're a gem.
I haven't fit in this since I was 20.
And you're 23.
So 3 years.
It's been 3 years.
The actual question was, what's been your favorite suit performance?
You mean by
and
me?
I'm sure that's probably to both of you because she referenced
of
us
being in suits? I'm only going to sue. I mean, you've been in several.
I've been in a lot.
Yeah. What have you been in?
The reaction of the people to that Transformer was the neatest.
They love that.
But it was also one of the most hard to wear.
Yeah.
The best time I ever had and the most comfortable I ever was on the Smoke Monster campaign.
Yeah.
Where
we were both in
we
suits.
made, I think, 20 Smoke Monsters, and most of us got to be in one. Someone said, "Come look here. You look down there. You see that? That's your suit." And it was a guy where one arm was tucked inside the suit, and the other arm was a tree trunk. And I said, I'm
not wearing that.
I'm not wearing that. I got a bad shoulder. Get Darnell in that suit. He's strong. He can handle it. He lifts weights. And I said, no, I'll make my own suit. And I got a form. I made the most comfortable suit you can imagine. It was all stretch, wetsuit. I got armpit gussets. I made the face so that you can't see my face, but I had full vision and full breathing.
Yep.
And I'm not wearing no tree.
Is that your favorite suit that you ever wore?
Well, it's the most.
Is the one that you built for yourself to be the most comfortable thing ever?
Yes, it was the most comfortable, and we were out in Thousand Oaks, running around the woods, just whooping and hollering
At
like
night.
maniacs.
Yeah.
And we all got super delirious.
Yep.
Doug Jones was there.
Yep.
Talent being wasted. and we had a good time.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And the director was like. Everybody was losing control of the 200 people in the crowd.
There were over 200 extras, right?
Yeah, and we just kind of, by the end of it, everybody was so over it. They were just running around like maniacs.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. In the ad, you can't even tell. You could have had us wearing
because there's so
bags.
much CG in there as well.
Yeah, they did a lot of CG. Yeah. The hero monsters they made looked great on the camera. The rest of us didn't really need
I was
to be
one of the
there.
heroes, actually.
We could have been in sweatpants.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in
our
business.
And that's what happens. Yeah,
you
just
agonize over this stuff, and then it's like, Oh, 1 second. There it went. Did you see it?
Well, that was,
No.
I talked about with Alan Scott the first day with that. We always called it the cotton candy monster. It had that kind of purple and blue, fuzzy, with the really big arms and shoulders, and went down to the tiny body.
Oh yeah.
And it was at Legacy up on display for a long time. And I recently looked at that commercial, and it was a short build, but it was like, quick, we got to build this. It's got to look good. We're going to do head cast and custom sculpt and custom fur and all this kind of stuff, and it's on camera for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
4 seconds.
It's unfortunate.
David's saying 10 seconds.
10 seconds?
Oh no, 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
So is
Let me show you my Goonies spot.
Oh yeah, let's see it.
Do you guys like Goonies?
Who doesn't like Goonies?
They've
We all
got
love
Sloth, and that's a monster.
That is a monster.
Well, that's not fair to say. And I apologize to anybody with physical deformities.
And to Sloth.
And to people who have been dropped and have brain damage. That's
Like-
what happened.
Like Sloth.
Like Sloth, who
Yeah.
was lovable.
He was.
Makeup by Berman's.
Exactly.
I think it had to be done like 4 times because it wasn't... Something about it had kept changing. That's the story. You can ask them. I'm obsessed with Goonies.
I think Craig Reardon somebody did one that was just cut and then it
Oh,
got
maybe
taken
that's
over.
it.
Maybe the Bermans got cut. And
There's
Craig
at
did.
least 2 in the movie that you can tell the sculpt changed and
They're
the hair
different.
changed. Yeah.
Interesting.
You don't notice when you're a kid.
Actually, I've never noticed. So I'm gonna have to go back and look now.
Well, I'm obsessed with Goonies and I try to collect every information I can about it.
Okay.
I finally talked to Eric Fiedler last year,
Okay.
who worked on a bunch of the animatronics that were cut from the film. And that's the holy grail.
The octopus and all that stuff.
To hear about the stuff that you've only heard rumors, there's no footage, there's
Right.
only rumors. Did you know there's a whole side story in Goonies at the chase scene at the beginning? The cars crash into a circus sideshow cart of trained apes,
Really?
and they escape. And throughout the movie,
Did not know this.
they cut back to these monkeys wreaking havoc in the town. There's a whole thing where they attack Troy, and Eric Fiedler told me all about this. Apparently, they got a hold of some of the ape suits from Greystoke that Rick Baker made,
Yeah, okay.
and they're in Goonies. But it was all cut
Are
out.
you sure this isn't something Eric Fiedler was just telling you?
No, even Corey Feldman mentions in the commentary
Okay.
that they shot for the DVD. He goes, "Does anybody remember there used to be gorillas in this movie?" and then everyone was like, "No, Corey, I don't." But Eric Fiedler did.
I think
'Cause he
Eric
was-
Fiedler and Corey Feldman went out one night, got hammered.
Let's tell everybody there was monkeys in this.
What do you got?
Anyway, my film teacher, my editing teacher in college was an assistant editor on Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And that shot right next to Goonies, and he was buddies with the editing team on Goonies. And they gave him some swag that he gave me. This is an official production patch
Nice.
that they would put on their trucker hats.
Yep.
And Spielberg made these buttons. It's a skull, and it says, "Don't ask me about Goonies." And this was a reverse psychology campaign that Spielberg waged at Warner Brothers to get people to ask him about Goonies, because that's a funny word.
Right.
And people were like, "What's Goonies? What's Goonies? Don't ask me about Goonies." But
That's
these
funny.
are part of my absolute treasure.
Prize collection.
And I'll tell you a true Hollywood story if you
Do it.
want. It's
Oh,
dramatic, and
absolutely.
I hope I don't ruin my career over it.
You will not.
Rumor has it,
Yeah.
because there was so much to shoot on that movie, and I think Donner was kind of stressed out by the kids.
Right.
And Spielberg apparently didn't love how some of the cuts went with the adult scenes with the Fratellis,
Okay.
and supposedly went at night behind Donner and reshot some of the Fratelli scenes. And Donner was so upset because he would have preferred to be shooting more adult
Right.
scenes and less of these kids screaming all day. So my friend, my teacher, got invited to Richard Donner's birthday at the attic set for the Goonies. All the Goonies were there, Spielberg's there, and they bring out a cake for Richard Donner, happy birthday, all the kids are singing, and Spielberg goes, we need a knife, anybody got a knife to cut this cake? And apparently Richard Donner said, why don't you pull the one out of my back? And I don't know if he was joking around because they were buddies or if he was really pissed off. But that's the story I heard. And Spielberg, Donner, if you don't like me telling the story, too bad.
Yeah, Mr. Steven Spielberg and Mr. Donner,
baby.
if you're watching right now.
That's Hollywood.
Oh, wait, David's got a question here. Steven Spielberg's actually watching.
Yeah, Mr. Spielberg said that night
42069
was on loan from. We have a few minutes
from
left.
Psycho.
Okay.
And Suddenly Bees is asking if there's time for Jesse to talk about Saved by the Bell.
Oh, well, this one time on Saved by the Bell, I don't know if you...
Is this a personal thing? Were you on Saved by the Bell? Or?
No. God, what a dream that would have been. But do you remember on Saved by the Bell, there was a season when Jessie Spano was out. God knows what happened to her. And they brought in Tori. And she was just like Jessie Spano, except not so much of a nerd. She rode a motorcycle. She was from out of town. She wore a leather jacket. She was cool, but she was terrified of earthquakes. And she got stuck. The one and only time in the whole history of Saved by the Bell, there was an elevator. They had to wheel something up to the upper floor in the elevator. She and Zach Morris got stuck in the elevator, and she freaked out because of earthquakes are scary, and you know that's true.
Yeah.
So everybody just needs to stay calm. If you're in an elevator during an earthquake, you're either going to die, or you're going to suffocate, or you're going to get out. You don't get to choose. So just try to relax, and, be more like Zach Morris. He had his big cell phone. I think he got some help, but... if you're like Tori and you panic, you might hyperventilate and pass out or something. Anyway.
You don't want that.
Anyway, that's my true Hollywood story of Saved by the Bell.
On that note, I want to thank Jesse Gee for giving me this piece of artwork.
Yes. And I want to thank Ted for giving me $1,000 for it. And we've really done some good work here.
No, it is fair. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for sale if anyone's interested in this strange-looking centipede
and
you're
always at Monsterpalooza.
And this is also $300 right here. I'll make it so it doesn't
You're always at
fall
Monsterpalooza.
apart.
People, please follow Jesse Gee. Jesse Gee Arts or what, on Instagram?
Yeah, Jesse Gee Arts at Jesse Gee
At Jesse
Arts.
Gee, sorry.
Ampersand Amsterdam JESSE GEEARTS.
There you go.
.com/fun.
He's a brilliant artist. The artwork that he builds is just amazing. Go please check it out.
And my other page is private and don't find me. That's just for my friends. Leave me alone.
I'm on it.
Sent to heart.
There you go. All right, Jesse, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your artwork.
You're
and
welcome.
Your stories.
I unbutton this vest.
Unbutton it now. We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back in just a second.